come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready. Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome to the vlog on the blog. On the daily, as everyone can see, we have a new co-host today. Many of our Covenant family members know who this fine fellow is. And to make you feel more comfortable going forward, we'll have to have John Voigt do an introduction provided by cats as opposed to Wookiee, won't we? You don't have a curiosity leash because none of your cats will wear a leash, do they?
No.
This is the man affectionately known as Matt for cats. And before we begin, Matt, I did get your approval to share this because you've shared it a bunch of times. But now that we have a number of people that are conveying the means that they came to know the Yada Yah material and came to know Yahweh and became Covenant. And most, were formerly religious and we began questioning the religion, and then heard me on a talk radio show, which I did about 10,000 of them. And they went to the website or Googled my name, whatever it was, and they started reading, and they're captivated by what they were learning. That was not your case, was it, Matt?
It was not the case at all.
No. In fact, you were struggling at one point in your life, weren't you?
I was down and out in the worst way. Yes.
Yes. And so who was it that, because this will top all others, who was it that introduced you to me and to Yada Yahweh and ultimately to Yahweh?
It was my heroin dealer.
I just think it's just amazing. Now, how did that conversation take place?
So it was a two-part conversation. It was 2 different days. Because when he first brought it up, it wasn't something that I registered until the second time. But the first time we were meeting up to do an exchange, he, pulled his car up next to mine to where it's driver to driver, facing opposite directions, where we just did the exchange. And we were chatting for a moment. And at that time, I was still Christian. I was just searching for a bunch of stuff online, looking for answers, did any of this stuff with Jesus really happen? Blah, blah, blah. I was searching. And I had seen stuff that had said, the incorrect pronunciation of Yahweh. So I knew that at that point, I was under the assumption that God's name was Yahweh. And for some reason, I brought that up to him. And I said, Yahweh. And he said, wait, you know God's name? And he said, have you been to yadayah.com? And I was like, no. And again, it just blew by me. Didn't think about it. It wasn't until about a month later when I was at his house. And something came up again. And he's like, did you check out the site? And I said, no, I hadn't. And then he pulled it up right there with me and showed me. And then from that moment on, I started learning and watching the Shabbat shows every now and then. It wasn't a regular occurrence. This was in 2015. I was still very much in my addiction. And but everything that you were saying that I had listened to, I knew it to be true at that point. I was like, okay, this all makes sense. It's just I hadn't acted upon it until 2022. But going back to that time, yeah, I was a junkie in 2015. And my dealer was the one that brought it up. And he learned about it from his mother. I'd asked, where did you get this information? And he said, from his mother. And one thing that you don't know, Yada, that I told Alma about was that in the last few months, I've now met his mother because his mother is a local Covenant member. And
wow,
unknowingly, she saw how active I was on Facebook. And she used to go to the Mikre with Kirk when Kirk lived in town. And so she had reached out to Kirk to get a hold of me. So Kirk asked if he could share my number with her, and I said, yeah, absolutely. And when he told me her name and he said that her son was in jail or prison, it clicked. I was like, I realized who her son was, and I was there the day that he got raided and was taken in. So when I first talked to her, I had to tell her first and foremost before we started a conversation that I knew her son, and that I technically wouldn't be covenant without her, introducing to her son and introducing to me. And so since then, I've had a dinner with her. We chat every now and then. She's got a lot going on in her life, but we keep in contact. And so it's been interesting how that worked out. But definitely going back to when it started, to learn from your drug dealer, that's one way to find God.
Yeah, but it was all because a mother cared for her son.
Mm-hmm.
And really, when you get right down to it, as a mother cared for her son and was trying to help her son, a son that she knew needed help. And she has doing it in a way that the son didn't rebel against. He knew it was important, which is why he shared it with you.
Yeah.
That's really an extraordinary woman. I hope whatever struggles she is having, a rather full life, that it works out well for her. She continues to learn and grow, and direct her to the website where she could participate with other people. We all have a story, all have a background, and if life were easy for any of us, we wouldn't be worth a damn. And it's by overcoming challenges that makes us strong. And I can't say I've ever had an addiction like you had to overcome, but I've had my share of challenges in life's way, and it's how we deal with them that defines who we are.
Right. And going back in 2022, when I began to engage in the covenant and actually want to take in information and act upon it, I kept that in mind. I remember hearing you say multiple times that overcoming hardships builds character and grit. And so I kept that in my mind. And I was like, okay, I need to make a change, and I need to overcome this and use this as a lesson learned rather than thinking about my life in terms of poor me. I went through all this. I then put in perspective, okay, everything that happened to me until this moment was all lessons learned in life. Every person I've met, every event that's happened is just a sequence of events in a movie. And at this point, it's the climax of where I get to decide how the story ends. And that's when I made the choice to engage and change everything about what I was doing.
Yeah. It's not how you begin, it's how you finish.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's a great story, and you've been clean now for 3 years?
Well, no, since 2019, but I was still depressed, and I still wasn't doing anything with my life, and I fell 3 stories and broke 5 vertebrae in 2019, about a month after getting sober, because I started working for a friend under the table, and he asked me if I was afraid of heights, which I wasn't, but without any training, he said, go caulk the windows of this hotel, the 3rd story, no gear, just climb the top of the ladder. And as I'm leaning over to caulk the window, I fell and broke 5 vertebrae. And I was not paralyzed, but I ended up in a back brace for 18 months and gained 100 pounds. And then that made me more depressed, because not only was I not doing anything with my life, I had gained weight. And so that's when in 2022, it was like I started losing all the weight and made the decision that I need to change things. So it wasn't, even though I'd been clean for a few years, I still wasn't being productive with my life until 2022.
Yeah. Drug addiction actually isn't the greatest limitation of what a person can achieve. Depression and a bad attitude are the greatest limitation on a person's life. And as I have counseled so many people in depression, there's only one way out. Only one way out. And that is to invest your life in something beyond yourself. If you're investing your energy and your life trying to help other people, then you're less focused on what is wrong in your life, and you're actually making a contribution to others and yourself, and you'll end up almost immediately feeling good about yourself, and you'll get out of that whole depression spiral. And the depression spiral, you can't get out of it. if you're focused on yourself. So if you're focused on your depression and trying to solve your depression, you'll never resolve it. Yeah,
Right.
it's just by saying, I'm going to do something that is enormously good for others, and I'm going to devote myself to it. And then the depression goes away because you're not thinking about it anymore. It doesn't mean anything to you.
It's so rewarding. It's so rewarding. And that's just it, is just by the act of helping others. And even before really contributing to the covenant, when you started the Facebook thing and the social media thing, even before that, I had started the mycology stuff, and I was teaching people, and I was being positive. And so once I start getting positive reinforcement and encouragement from others, and them appreciating what I was doing, it just became just a spiral of goodness. It was just like, okay, I'm going to keep this going. And the more I did good, the more that they encouraged me, the better I felt. And it was just a perpetual cycle of positive reinforcement and reward rather than the negative reinforcement with the depression.
Yeah, and we tried to keep it real, because I remember my first introduction to you, and you weren't my normal group of people to hang around. You were different, and and my first reaction is, okay, I'm going to be a little bit cautious here, but I am naturally prone to reach out to and support those people who have overcome a challenge. I like people who have fallen flat on their face, have been in as bad a way as you can possibly be, and have the grit and resolve and the character to overcome it, because those are people ultimately you can trust. Those are people who get things done. Somebody that hasn't had a life challenge like that, you can never trust, because you have no idea what they're going to do if times get difficult. So I liked that. So I was immediately drawn to that. And those that I was closest to, I said, this guy is definitely trying to make a contribution. He seems to have a good attitude. He's up to speed with his reading. He knows what's right and what's not. I think we give him every bit of an opportunity, and I think he'll end up being a very pleasant surprise. But let's not blow smoke. Don't pretend that it didn't happen. Don't pretend that things are glorious if they need to be improved. So I think keeping it real is also important on this whole thing. That you're not finding that somebody has told you something just to flatter you or that sort of thing. You need to kind of earn your own stripes.
Yeah, and
you did. Your contribution when we were building our outreach on social media, X and Facebook and YouTube, you were the most active, doing the kinds of things that help build those channels, and it worked until such time as I couldn't stomach them anymore. When I finally came to the realization that both Facebook and X had fundamentally changed, that they had reapplied thought police. I did not agree with their thought police. And they changed the algorithms such that truth was punished, and you could not succeed unless you were either spewing drivel, or you were a racist, anti-Semitic, a MAGA, a Muslim, or a nitwit of some sort. And so I just became sick with it. I realized there is no way to effectively communicate Yahweh's message in social media. And I withdrew completely. And I went to Joe and said, I'm going to ask you for what may be impossible. I need you to replicate all of the features of social media on a website, all of them. A vlog like YouTube, a blog like Facebook and X, intercommunications like you see on so many of the messaging sites and background also on Facebook. We need to have a full communication capability, comments capability, interactivity, blogs and vlogs, plus a full library. And I want it all searchable, and I want it all beautiful. And this is the layout I want. And he pulled it off, and by pulling it off, we could move away. I could move away from social media. If it wasn't for this show and feeding the blog, because it's really important we stay in touch with what's wrong in this world so we can speak out against it. And
Yes.
we do that through that one blog page. But if it wasn't for that, we'd have no involvement in social media because we don't need it anymore. And we're not trying to recruit people. We're
Right.
trying to hone the skills of those who are already part of the family so that this site is robust and ready when the time comes and we need to use it as the home for Yahweh's name during that last, well, really for all of the 7 years of Israel's troubles, which, by the way, is only 15 days away from its beginning. So this is the home for Yahweh's name during the 7 years of Israel's troubles. And for the 1,000 years thereafter, this is our library. This is the home for Yahweh's name. This is the go-to site for teaching and interaction with the family for 1,000 years. So this site becomes absolutely essential.
Critical.
So, Kevin, did you see the addition on the site this morning?
The new flip books.
Well, no, that was
Okay.
Boy, you are really slow on the pickup there. Oh, up feeding the chickens late at night or early this morning or something. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
What
yeah,
I missed?
They completely rewritten not only flip books but PDF presentation of the books and interactive integration of the books. It is spectacular what he did on those, and I would agree that is a big deal. But that's yesterday's news.
Okay. What did I miss this morning?
Search. I had asked Joe several days ago for the ability to search these vlogs, which means you have to have a transcript of every vlog, and you have to be able to organize them in a database and assess them by timestamp, and to be able to choose to search all of the books, the entire site, or just the vlogs, and to be able to choose which one you want to search and to be able to put any word or phrase into a search engine and have it bring up. If you choose vlog, it will bring up the vlogs in addition to the books, which means that since most of our learning is now being shared here as part of these vlogs, that now somebody can look up, like you used the term Amma, Matt. And I've been speaking a lot of tamam and what it means pursuant to what God is looking for in us, and it isn't perfection. It's finishing the job. And those things are all part of our recent discussions in these vlogs. They're not part of the books. So I wanted a means that somebody could ascertain what we have been saying about these things by searching the vlogs. No one has ever been able to do that before. Joe did. And he not only found a way to do it. When you go and you choose search and you search a vlog, for example, or the whole site, and put in what I did this morning, tamam, new concept for us. It's been used a lot. I was always accurate with what tamam meant, but I didn't know that you should always define tamid. And tamim is simply the plural of tam, and it is described completely with the verbal root of tamam. And so knowing that it was something that we have come to understand fairly recently, so I put in tamam as my first search. And it brought up every one of the vlogs that we have mentioned tamam, because Joe also created in the background an automated MP3 generator. So you can do the audio files and download them and play them on your phone, in your car or at work or wherever you are. And he also created an automated transcript generator, and it's the transcripts that are searched. But it doesn't just bring up the transcript. So it'll show you in the transcript where we talked about tamam and what we said. Nice, huh? It'll also bring up the vlog in which everyone that tamam was mentioned. And it doesn't just bring up that and hope you can find it. It brings it up to the place it's introduced. But it's smarter than that. Now it's smarter than that because it doesn't bring you up to the place where tamam is mentioned. Otherwise, you would break up a sentence, wouldn't it? Because you're not starting the sentence with tamam usually, and it's usually part of a discussion, correct?
Right.
he was smart enough to program it 1 or 2 sentences before the word is mentioned. And
Give you a
that's
little
where
bit
it
of
begins.
context.
And that's where it begins. So it brings up every vlog, and it has a graphic of the vlog, and it tells you the timestamp in it. And then it brings it up. And then it starts playing from before the word was mentioned. And you can listen then as long as you want thereafter. And it has a transcript of it off to the side. Now that's a search.
I'm looking at it right now. I just typed in Ethan because I wanted to remember the definition of Ethan for because I was thinking about naming one of the new cats that.
Yeah.
And so I just searched that, and yeah, it has 7 results under books because again, it's a newer concept that we've recently learned. But there's 274 results under video, and like the first one is from final word picture at 39:07 time marker is where it first says Ethan. So yeah, this is brilliant.
Brilliant. And it's graphically appealing because it shows you the thumbnail for that video.
Right.
And if you click on the video, it will start before the word is mentioned. In Ethan's case, and it's EYTHAN as opposed to just ETH, it'll take you directly to it. And on the transcripts, for those doing the transcripts, it will actually allow you to universally correct the spelling to the proper Hebrew transliteration. So if you're part of the transliteration team, when you use them a lot, Kevin, you're part of the transliteration team, and you do a transliteration, which is an automated feature, and you see quickly reviewing it because it'll give you the transliterated text that, like Chinook, when I was doing the one I did, Chinook was spelled phonetically in English, not as it is written in Hebrew, and so I made the correction. The first thing it did is say, "You want me to correct all of them in this transcript?" Well, yeah. Do you want me to put it into our corrected file so that every time Chinook is mentioned and every video it's correct? Well, yeah. Did it automatically. Now, talk about sophisticated. Just absolutely brilliant. But that search engine, and if you do it on the books, it'll show you the cover of the book and tell you the page that it's in and give you a direct link directly to that page where that discussion was taking place.
That's a lot of moving parts.
That's a little, and so if you want to go 3 days back, so now you're 1 day behind schedule there, Kevin. You were talking about what we did last night because we all made comments on Joe's new flip books. I wrote a dissertation on them. This is my way. You wrote it does this for me, so it works. And Rich did the same thing. It does this for me, so it works. Selfish. And I went through every single feature of the flip books and every single feature on his site and analyzed them all and compared them all. And that was yesterday's news. The day before news is also really important for the whole yada yada experience, which is the day before yesterday, he created a means to publish an unpublished book. And for me to update that unpublished book as I write these chapters. And so I now have 3 coming home 4s because we're learning so much. I have to keep on going back and rewriting it at a new beginning to take us through the process of what we have learned. And so now it's going to be coming home 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going through and preparing those for pre-pub. And he has a means that I can drop it in and update it. And the pre-pub book is still searchable and readable, even on our book page. And it is part of then the database for searching. And these are important because my last 1,800 pages that I have written, and that's how much these coming home 4, 5, and 6 are going to be. It's already at 1,800 pages. Those 1,800 pages are our most recent translations and our most recent insights, written insights and translations. So they're important to have in the Ask Yada capability, which, by the way, is running beautifully now. Ask Yada, the AI knows what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to act. The questions I've asked it, it comes through with answers that are absolutely accurate and brilliant. But these unpublished books will feed the database of Ask Yada. The transcripts for all the shows feed into Ask Yada. The questions I asked the AI were based upon what we had discussed in the shows that hadn't been covered in the books, and it nailed the answer. So the Ask Yada has access to the transcripts, and if you search anything on the site, you now have access to them. And if you're looking at translations, the translations of the unpublished books will also show up.
Nice.
So it's a beautiful, comprehensive integration.
Well,
The
and
site
it
is
really takes a lot of
mind-blowing.
it takes a lot of the workload off of us. Where it will, you know, with you publishing the Mayor in the chat like you were doing, you know, I went ahead and did chapter 4 and 5, so the transcript teams would have them and stuff like that. But this just totally takes it's one and done. It's put right
Yes.
into the place where it needs to be, and you know, a lot of
Yes.
the backfilling we were doing with labor is taken care of, which is nice. I mean, with the MP3s, we're gonna have to. Definitely Joe's getting a phone call about this transcript situation because I got a team of people now, so we can see about feeding.
Yeah, and Perry is doing 25 a day, just Perry. So
Yeah.
he's but we have 1,000 of them to do.
Right.
Okay.
And Joe literally got the misspellings database from all the work you guys have done
Yes.
in
Yeah.
transcribing. So now he's set up a way we can automate it even further. So for
Yeah.
now, keep doing the translations because I combine that database and get it back to Joe. So
So it's an amazing set of tools, and we have to work as a team to populate all this. And while we're doing it, just as Matt, you were commenting on and liking and adding comments to Facebook and X, now it's our responsibility to do them on the blog page, the vlog page, the basic page, the music page. Everywhere there is a post on that site, everywhere. You click on it and it will give you the chance to comment. And then you can comment on other people's comments. And then on the message, the chat page, you'll see comments, blog and vlog. You can go there and you'll see every comment that's ever been made on any of them. So it is very, very deep and interactive. And I think it's important for us to cover all of these things and let people know how. I don't think it's a website that even approximates this anywhere in the world now in terms of the full range of capabilities from chat to commenting to 1,000 hours of vlogs to a library containing 25,000 pages of single author books to translation capability, the depth of the music that is on that site, all original. There's just nothing like it anywhere in the world.
Especially not in terms of the amount of content with the books and the vlogs and the music, but also the absolute ease of interactivity with that content, with the comment functions and everything being right there. Absolutely. I mean,
Yes,
Joe's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, it's not just the navigation of it and the access to it and the search capabilities of all of it, but also this interactivity amongst the community where we can all communicate with one another about it and share our thoughts with others that are reading it, because you don't have to be a member to read everything, to have access to everything. You only have to be a member if you want to add to the comments. So you have to be a member to use the Ask Yada search. You have to be a member to post. But everything is available to read and see without being a member. And we only have the member capability because there's no way to communicate with one another. There's no way of knowing who you're communicating with. There's no way to have a group communication, which is, as you know, Kevin, that's how we communicate now.
Yeah.
I'm with you either in direct communication or in the technical group. And we communicate that way multiple times a day. It's instantaneous. It's just a beautiful way to be able to do all this, and you can share images and comments. So it is really spectacular, and I'm exceedingly pleased with it. And I would say that for those who don't know, Joe has gone back to the days where I met him 35 years ago, and in our first meeting, I hired him away from the company that he was working for, because he was doing something that heretofore no one had ever done before. And that is in the early days of the internet, back in, the Stone Age, when we had dial-up networks and that sort of thing. All the way back in the early days, what Joe figured out is that you didn't have to have static HTML pages. And that's what everybody else had. You clicked on something and it took you to another static page and then another static page. And so it's just this whole library of static pages, and you could go through it that way. Joe says, I don't want to do it that way. I have an idea and I think it'll work. In fact, I'm sure it's going to work. I want to build a database. And then I'm going to dynamically generate a page based upon each request from that database. So all we have is a vast reservoir of information in database tables, and I'll retrieve it on the fly to create the page. And I said, I don't know what you're getting paid, but it's not enough. And you want to go off and do this with me? And we created an interactive retail store that was better by far at the time than Amazon. In fact, what we created is better than Amazon is today. And that's what he is going back to now. He's going back to his roots on dynamically generated interactive experiences out of to create this site. And as you know, we have more resources now than there have been 40 prophets, 20 of which were prolific writers. I have written probably 20 times more than all of them combined.
Yeah.
And then we've added now well over 1,000 hours of live stream video to it, and 10,000 hours of talk radio. It's a lot of material here, and so
Big
much of it
database.
is big database, proprietary translations and commentary and insights. So it's a major achievement. So I'm glad you didn't start the timer. It was an interesting introduction to all of this. I know that picture. She was wondering why an 06 was flying a plane that crash landed, and an 06, which would be if it's in the Navy, a naval aviator would be a captain as an 06, and an 06 would be a colonel if in the Air Force or the Army. And so she is pondering why an 06 would be in a position. In fact, that was the navigator and the weapons person in a I think it was an F-15. And why somebody with the status of a colonel or captain would be in that back seat, and what they would be doing flying a mission like this. Because when you go up in rank, one of the things you lose is you don't get to play anymore. You don't get to play with the toys. You have to direct the people that play with the toys. That's what happens when you go up in rank.
The more expensive you get to replace, the less fun you get to have.
That is correct. And an 06 would be that case. So she said, "Oh, come on." And so you're going to tell me that was a full bird colonel, and we don't know his name, and you're not parading him around as I did this, I saved him, and there's no mention of anything about it. And this full bird colonel allegedly through hostile testimony territory decided he was going to walk 100 miles and hide in a cave, and you'd only find him once he went to this cave, and there's no indication you brought anybody back, but you lost two C-130s and two naval gunships, and you lost two A-10s and a couple of more F-15s in the process, and you got nothing to show for it but a Trump Twitter post. Come on. So my answer is just pretty simple, wasn't it? It was, as I've said, it was Captain Uranium, unless he was Army or Air Force, in which case it would be Colonel Uranium. And the reason that you don't have Colonel Uranium there is because the mission failed. They were trying to retrieve uranium, and it failed miserably. And so all the rest of it is lies.
So yet another Easter miracle lie then, huh?
Another Easter miracle lie. Yeah, he is risen. Oh, well, yeah, okay. Why don't you tell me why that pagan myth of a bodily resurrected God worked, and it didn't work for thousands of years before that with the Egyptians or any other pagan religion, or why you chose that pagan tradition when it has been proven to be untrue. And oh, by the way, what was your God doing dead? What was your God doing hanging around as a man? And how did this said God manage to have men kill him? And why did you blame the Jews for killing him when they had no power to do so in the province of Yahuwd? And if it was the Jews who killed your God, why aren't you worshiping the Jews? Questions.
John Stewart had some good questions here. It's you say the war has consumed half, and we have double, so you can eat your cake
Yes.
and have two of them, I suppose.
Yeah. So
this was hilarious.
John Stewart was talking about the dumpster, and all released data and open market there's open source data on war consumption. The military industrial complex is probably open on what their orders are and their backlogs and inventories are. We consumed 50% of our arsenal of things like Tomahawk missiles and of interceptors and the like. So of our precision guided munitions and defense mechanisms, we consumed half of them. So, and everybody knows that. It's not a secret. So he has Trump then coming on this show, not his show, but out there before Marine One, because he had to go play golf and urgently in Florida. That Trump says we've never had as many munitions as we have now. In fact, we have twice as many as before. So my comment is, okay, well, so it's new math, and it proves the old adage was false. You can have your cake and you can have it and you can eat it too. And matter of fact, with Trumpian, you can eat your cake, show that you ate your cake as he has, and still have two more of them.
Yeah. Stewart, he goes on into this and he's like, surely someone, this whole press pool is going to have a follow-up question that goes, what did you just say, Mr. President? Surely someone, and he goes, what do we have? Pete Rose. Are you going to pardon Pete Rose? Is it, these are the follow-ups? I mean, he loses his mind on it. It was hilarious.
Yeah. We have destroyed education in this country, and you don't have to listen to this, Matt, but for those under about 35 years old, they have been indoctrinated. They have not been educated. And so the people out there, as part of the press pool, they're asking questions. They're part of the indoctrination group, and they're not capable of thinking judgmentally. And of course, the follow-up question to Trump would have been, excuse me, sir, even your own military sources say that we used half of our stockpile. And when you use half of your stockpile, and when the public documentation is that all of these things take a year to reproduce. So you cannot have more than half of them. So you cannot have twice what you had before. You have half of what you have before. So the question really is, now what? Now that you've used in the first 4 weeks of this war, half of your stockpile. And if you take it to zero, then the United States is completely defenseless. What is your plan, sir? So let's not pretend that you have twice as many because you have half as many. There is nobody with that intellect, nobody with that sense of judgment, no one who thinks clearly enough, fast enough to process information and do that. And it is troublesome to John Stewart because he does have a reasonably fast processor. You have to as a comedian. If you don't process information quickly, you can't be a comedian.
Here we have foreshadowing things to come. Mary. We got the picture of Mary. The chosen is Dode, not Jesus, and his mother was Ruth, not Mary. Stop lying.
Yeah. This is, I guess there's a series on, I don't know if it's Netflix or Amazon Prime, but it's called The Chosen. And it's a direct ripoff of Dode. Yahweh says that Dode is his firstborn, the Messiah, the returning king, and the chosen one. So, if you're going to pretend to be religious. You're going to pretend to speak for God, and you're going to steal titles that belong to God's firstborn son, the one that God said is the Messiah, the one that God said, he is my chosen one. And you're going to steal all of that. And then you're going to give the product of identity theft a mommy. Then, good God, get out of your behind and choose a mommy that makes some sense, because everything else you've done is a lie. There was no Jesus. No one named Jesus Christ ever existed, ever. There was no Jesus in the first century. Paul made him up in 52 CE. There's a reason that Paul never once in any of his 14 letters quotes anything that was allegedly said by Gospel Jesus. You know why Paul never once quotes anything that Gospel Jesus says, even though Paul claims that he was hired by and authorized by Gospel Jesus? Why would somebody who makes that claim never once quote a single thing from him?
Didn't exist.
He didn't exist. And the myth of Gospel Jesus wouldn't exist until Mark and Luke's Gospels. Mark and Luke were not eyewitnesses. They weren't even in the country at the time. And they both were Paul's propagandists. They both created a gospel to support Paul's letters. He never existed. It is an absolute lie. Miriam, from which we get Mary, means embittered. It means antagonistic. This is the name of the sister of Moshe, of Moses. And she is someone that God struck with leprosy, said, it's as if I'm spitting in your face. He despised her. He estranged her from the community, and then he divorced her of all of Israel. That woman, is in hell today.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to name the mother of your man god Miriam. Good God, these people are stupid. And you want to claim that her son was the chosen one when Dode is the chosen one. It just drives me nuts. And you walk around with a Bible, which is a horrible name for the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. You tack on an addition at the end of it that contradicts everything that comes before it. And you said it was inspired by the same God, who must be schizophrenic then. And then the story of Ruth is in the midst of it. And Ruth says, I am the Amma. I am the mother. And I'm going to deliver for you the kinsman redeemer. So who is the mother of the kinsman redeemer?
Ruth. Easy.
Ruth.
Easy enough.
Ruth. And when Dode came and to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim in 33 CE and would have been born sometime reborn, if you will, sometime around 2 BCE, his daddy was Boaz and his mommy was Ruth. And it's one of the most magnificent prophecies ever written, the greatest love story. And you've got a religion of 2.5 billion people that spit in God's face and come up with this absurd lie. It makes me so angry. I understand why God just must despise the religious. But if you're watching The Chosen and you think that Jesus is the chosen one, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking
There's
of
nothing
idiots.
good comes of that.
What do the religious make out of that line? Because I haven't heard you talk about that. As far as I don't know if the religious, even if they just scroll over it, but the I am the Amma, I am delivering the kinsman redeemer. What do they think that means?
Well, if you survey rabbinical literature and you survey Christian literature, they both make up stories that they try to explain away why the book of Ruth is there. And they will show Ruth as someone who was faithful and who overcame adversity, and that she lived a life of redemption. Or if you're there, that's the Christian version. And then in the Jewish version, it's nothing about Ruth. Ruth is meaningless. It's all about Boaz and of him being so benevolent that he actually reached out to a damned goy. And so it says that, Jews can be accommodating. Look at Boaz. He tolerated a goy. We wouldn't do that, but he did. That's how they look at the story. And the fact is, Ruth didn't have any faith. Ruth was brilliant. She delivered the single most, I think, magnificent line in the entire Torah, prophets, and Psalms. Man, you got Dod, the great orator. You got Elia, a great orator. And it's Ruth that delivers the best line of all. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. Where you go, I go. That's what, it's just magnificent. And they completely ignore what that means. And Ruth didn't have any faith. Ruth wasn't redeemed. Ruth is a story of intellect and strength and of having a moral compass and of knowing where you belong and knowing how to get it done and of being willing to roll up your sleeves and go to work and not being, self-righteous, but being the person that's, I'll go in that field. Yeah. Naomi, I love you, man. And I'll be here for you. So I'll go, and I know there's a field over there. It's a really big field. And the owner of that field, that Boaz fellow, he's Torah observant. So there's a corner of that field that is open for the likes of you and me to go out and harvest. I'll go and harvest it. And I'll bring you back some grain. The first time was barley, because it was during Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. And she went out in that corner of that field, and she knew that she would catch old Boaz's eyes. He had a thing for the girls. And Boaz was kind of the unofficial mayor of Bethlehem. Of course, it was in Bethlehem. That's where the kinsman redeemer comes from, after all. And so she's out there doing her thing, harvesting grain for Naomi, who was, considered an exceedingly valuable part of that community, which speaks very highly of the community and the woman's place in it. And so Boaz goes out to her, and she's going to introduce herself. She says, no, I know all about you. The fact is, he had been married to her about 4 times before that, and they'd known each other for a few thousand years. But nevertheless, he immediately turns to everybody else in his company, and he says, do not challenge this woman. Do not demean this woman. You stay out of this woman's way, and you do not intervene if she's doing harvesting here. She has my full approval. He obviously knew her. And from that point on, the way that the two of them interact and what they achieve, and then when she knows the nature of Boaz, because the character and the personality, the attributes, the attitude of Boaz and Ruth define what it is to be in the covenant. Theirs is the ideal covenant love story. And so she knows Boaz. She knows that Boaz is going to be out there reaping the fields with his guys. He's not he's not the colonel or general type that says, okay, you guys go out there and fight that war. He's going to be there reaping the fields with his men. And then afterwards, he's going to be charitable. He's going to throw a big party for everybody. They're going to have a big celebration that the harvest is over. And he's going to sleep with his men. He's going to go out there and find a corner of the threshing floor, and he's going to fall asleep with everybody else. Job well done. Let's go celebrate. We had a good time. We were productive. And she decides that she's going to do the brave thing. She's going to go right out to that threshing floor. She's going to find him. And she's going to recognize that, we were together during that time of Noach, and she's going to pull back a little layer of his cloak and cover herself up in it. And he turns to her and said, who are you? I am your Amma. She says not once, but twice. She is obviously not Boaz's mother. Boaz is twice her age. I am your Amma. I am the Amma, baby. And I'm going to deliver the kinsman redeemer to you. And the kinsman redeemer is Dod. And she and he were Dod's great grandparents. However, she didn't deliver the kinsman redeemer for another 3,000 years. But that story is prophetic of exactly who delivered Dod and mothered him throughout most of his life and lives. It's the greatest story ever told. And everybody misses it. But
yeah,
one of the things that's go ahead.
Go ahead. I like how it's what I see in it is Ruth's ability to notice a good thing as a Moabite, she noticed, I mean, she learns Yahweh's name from Naomi, of course, and she understands that if I live, if I become, with Yisrael, I become a part of Yisrael. This Torah is open to me as well. And so where you go, I go. Your God is my God. She recognizes a good thing. This is what I want. This is the way, off this planet, so to speak.
I'm going to say something now that I want to make a bigger point of than when I mentioned it in passing a day ago. Is where I wanted to go, and now you have introduced it. Being a Yisraelite isn't about genetics. It's a naming convention. She was no less the same genetics that Boaz was. The same. Abraham and Sarah were Babylonians.
Right.
Yishak was a Babylonian by ethnicity. Yishak married a Babylonian. Their two sons, Esau and Jacob, were Babylonians. They went to Haran for Laban's daughters because, well, he was a direct descendant of Abraham and Sarah when they passed through town there, through his extended family. They were Babylonians. So the 12 children of Israel, they're Babylonians. All of them. They only become Yisra'el as part of a naming convention. That's it. Israel and Yahuwd and Yahudim and Jews is a naming convention. And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand the Torah, because it's really clear. He was Jacob until he became Yisrael, right? And there was no mention of a Yisrael until Jacob was renamed Yisra'el. Yisrael is a naming convention. And it can be good or bad depending on who you are and how you approach Yahweh, because it's either individuals who struggle and wrestle with God or individuals who engage and endure with God, both from Sarah. And Sarah goes both ways in terms of that name, as is the case with so many Hebrew names, both good and bad. So it's a naming convention. The other thing that's important to know, that as a Moabite, you know what Moabite means, by the way? Moab?
Your daddy.
You know what it means? Yeah, who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
That's who's your daddy. Ma and Ab means who's your daddy. The Moabites are the product of Lot and his daughters in an incestuous relationship. Lot was Abraham's nephew, right? His daughters would have been also Babylonian, wouldn't they? So the Moabites are the same ethnicity as Yisrael, just a different naming convention to point out the problem with Lot and his daughters, but same naming convention. God can designate a people by nationality, even if it is a naming convention. And people can trace their genetics through, Jacob on down. But it's to call oneself a Yisraelite is a naming convention. And Jew has no basis anywhere. There's no such thing as a Jew. None. Yahuwd, which is a compound of Yahweh and Dod, means beloved of Yah, Yahudim in the plural, is the correct term. And if Jews don't become Yahudim again, they have no chance of ever reconciling with Yahweh. But that is only one of the 12 tribes. So those people who call themselves Jews as a corruption of Yahuwd and don't relate to themselves as Yisraelites don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And I'm not sure it's possible today to know if you were of the tribe of Yahuwd or the tribe of Lowy or Manasseh or any of the others. Daniel, I don't think is even possible. So the terms that are being used today are being used ignorantly. And
Well, yeah,
I
those
think
genetic lines being so-called lost. The only tribe that we know of being left is Yahuwd. there's nowhere for us to go back and say, oh, well, this is bones from someone that was definitely Dan, so we can trace a different, genetic lineage from that, so.
Correct. Correct. And even in Yahuda, by the time that the province was isolated, which is really any time after about 700 BCE, because that's when the Assyrians hauled 10 of the 12 tribes away. And it was 10 of the 12, so Benjamin is still intermixed with Yahuwd, so you couldn't distinguish between those two. But there was a very significant remnant of the other 10 tribes that migrated down into Yahuda and to Benjamin, as opposed to having the nose rings and going off and as slaves. So even being remaining in the province of Yahuda did not mean that you were a descendant of Yahuwd, did it?
No.
Correct.
No.
The other thing I wonder about is Ibri. Ibri
Yes.
was nice as called Hebrew, okay,
Right.
from the other side, and that
Right.
itself designates something that is set apart,
Correct.
So,
And
or at
and the
least
naming
given the
convention
opportunity.
sets you apart if you can appreciate the fact as Ibri means to be set apart from the other side, and Yisra'el means that you are either engaged in enduring with God, or you are wrestling with God and contentious with God. And so that name applies to you one way or the other. If you want to be part of that naming convention and in that group. So are there people that are part of that naming convention and descendants from it today? Absolutely. Do we know who is qualifies and who doesn't by the percentage of their ethnicity that would be part of that naming convention, distinguishing them from other descendants of Babylon? Not really. No. And also, this is what's important to have an appreciation of. Souls, nephesh, souls do not have genealogy. They do not. One of the things I've learned through all this study is that there's a number of people that God likes using for various reasons, the attributes, attitudes, character, whatever it is, that God says, I can trust this person, or I find this person entertaining or interesting. And when I trace the places that God has used me in the past, there are times, like Chinook. Is Chinook a Yisraelite?
No.
Was he a Babylonian? No.
No. He was before that. Yeah, before.
No.
Yeah.
And, Adam wasn't a Yisraelite or a Babylonian, right? And you get to Noach, which would be my next gig. Was he a Babylonian or a Yisraelite?
He wasn't a
neither.
Yisraelite, but yeah.
But he's not a Babylonian either. So he's neither of those two, and same soul. And then
So he would have been in and out of multiple different lineages.
So the body can have an ethnicity, or it can have a national naming convention, like we call ourselves. I can call myself, I don't anymore, but I once did as an American. That is not an ethnicity; it's a naming convention, right? And Yisrael is very much like that, by the way. And so to call it a Jewish state, no. It can be a state that those who ascribe to the naming convention of and would be designated as Yahuwd and Yahudim or Yisra'el can have an identity with. But even that's not going to do you any good unless you go back to Yahuwd, for example, and know that means beloved of Yah, as opposed to Jew, which doesn't mean Shinola.
Billy squat, right?
Now, what I want to make the point is that one of my lives was as Boaz. Boaz would have been within that naming convention. His body DNA would have said he was a descendant of Abraham and Sarah through Yishak and Jacob. All right? Was his soul any different from the previous time as Noah?
No.
And then as the man from Edom bringing the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem for Dode, and then as Ethan Ha-Izraki, who's neither one of the two of those fellows are Jewish by the definition that we would use today. They're not Israelites. Did that soul change to accommodate a different naming convention or ethnicity? Nope.
Sure didn't.
Nope. But God would use a different ethnicity or naming convention to show that my people have forgotten how to do this. My people are too recalcitrant. They're too ornery. I need to now demonstrate that I'm going to work outside of my people to get my people's attention. And
Right.
so when his foremost person, Dode, fell off the rails, there wasn't a Yahuwd, there wasn't a Yisraelite that could get him back in his relationship with Yahweh. And so a non-Yisraelite DNA was chosen to drive home that message. Just why the Nakri for the last days is specifically the man from Edom. He is a non-Yisraelite. And God wants you to know that he couldn't find a Yisraelite that would do the job. And so he turned to a non-Yisraelite. But the fact of the matter is, it's strictly a naming convention. The soul is exactly the same, whether Yisraelite or not.
Right.
And so the rabbis that have a conniption fit that want to speak about how Boaz was showing kindness to a goy because the goy wanted to be convert to Judaism. No, there was no Judaism at the time. She didn't convert to Judaism, and he wasn't being nice to her because she wanted to convert, and he didn't give a rat's patootie as to what her ethnicity was. And oh, by the way, his ethnicity and hers were the same.
Ruth is the best example of the first 4 terms and conditions of the covenant.
Yes.
She walked away. She bent her entire life towards the covenant relationship. She perceived the covenant reality because of Naomi.
Correct.
She listened to the instructions, and
Your
unspoken invitation was there in the harvest fields of Bethlehem.
You are correct up to the point of 4. It's 5, and let me explain. The first condition of the covenant is to walk away from the family of man, from religion and politics, from Babel, if you will. She did, didn't she? She walked away from her people, and to Naomi's people. She is the absolute best example there is of not only doing that, but making the declaration. That's why her declaration is so important. The declaration is the first term of the covenant, but that's only the first part of it. Your people are my people. Where you go, I go. That is that's first. The second is that walk to Yahweh and allow him to remove your guilt. And that's where you go, I go. That's why she was on that corner of the threshing floor on Bokodim and then back again on Shabuah. She knew her dates. She was there at the right time for both harvests, because where you go, I go. And then the next is trust and rely on Yahweh. Your God is my God. She is absolutely boom, 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 designating her acceptance of the first 3 terms and conditions of the covenant. And the fourth is closely examine and carefully consider these terms that comprise this relationship. And she has them down. She knows exactly what he's going to do, where he's going to be, how she is all the way in understanding that, to the point that she announces, I am the productive mother. I am the Amma. And I'm going to deliver for you the kinsman redeemer. Man, you can't get there without being a brilliant student of Torah. So she fits the fourth. And the fifth is to be circumcised. What do you think circumcision is all about? It's setting yourself apart. Right. And particularly to set apart the part of you that is responsible for the procreation of a covenant family. And she says, man, I'm setting apart my womb apart. I am going to deliver for you the kinsman redeemer. She's got all 5. And as a parent, she knows exactly what she's supposed to do with her son. And her son is the king. She's the king mom.
It's a great story.
It is the best story ever. And it's just a shame that people don't get it.
Right.
All right. So this picture you brought up.
We're an hour in. We're an hour in. You want to do one more?
Maybe 1 or 2 more. Sure. Why not?
Okay.
You got it's like you got a timer on us or something.
That was my job. That was my
Yeah, it was your
job.
job.
We discussed
That was
it.
your job. Don't shoot the man for doing what he was asked to do, right? Okay, so
Christianity
Jews
has
flee
always been
Spain, Columbus
anti-Semitic.
sails west.
You got it.
Yeah, very few people know that Columbus was Jewish. All of the officers on his 3 ships, they were all Jewish. Do you know why they were willing to risk their lives to do something no one had ever done before? Because it was either that or be tortured to death.
Right. Get the
And
heck out
when
of
they
Spain.
came
Yeah.
back and they came back with some treasure, Queen Isabella stole it from them because she felt that as a Christian woman, it was her duty to steal from Jews and to disparage them. And so Christopher Columbus, he was Jewish. And this was during the time of the Inquisition. And so what I want to make perfectly clear is that Christianity is the most despicable religion in the history of humanity. It was born out of anti-Semitism. Paul and Peter, and I don't think it was actually Peter, I think it was Luke that put words in Shimon's mouth. I have a very different understanding of who Shimon was, who Yahuwd was, and who Jacob was as well. That makes perfect sense where this idea of disciples for a misnomer is impossible. But the bottom line is that when Paul condemned Jews for killing the Christian man God, that became the basis of anti-Semitism worldwide. And Jews have been subject to shettles and deprivation of property and of life and of livelihood, and having to live in ghettos and been subject to Holocaust conditions and been enslaved by Christians for 2,000 years. They have been demeaned by Christians for 2,000 years. I heard something, you've always heard people that break their TVs and throw a shoe at it or something. I recommended yesterday on this program that I said, I listen every evening to at least one of these shows of Glenn Dyson. We had one of his shows up. He had one of his regular guests on. This regular guest had been the ambassador to Saudi Arabia, so he had some expertise. He's been his assistant secretary of defense, and he's kind of an old codger, but he's pretty articulate. But he, like so many of them now, is a raging anti-Semite. And he began to say something that the first words worked. Netanyahu has caused more anti-Semitic reaction. And this is true. Now he's going to make a comparison since, up to the point of since, what he said is true. Netanyahu has been a disaster for Israel. His constant bombing of Lebanon, secondary attacks on Iran, coaxing America into getting and supporting his war, destroying Gaza. Netanyahu has been a disaster for Israel. He has turned more people worldwide against Jews than anybody in modern history. So Jews have become their own worst enemy. But then he finished his statement. Netanyahu has been the biggest source of anti-Semitism since Jews killed Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Now, I don't use the F-bomb. I have 10 years of syndicated talk radio show hosting, doing it 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you purge certain words from your vocabulary. So I don't use the F-bomb. I did last night, and it was followed by more curse words. You effing piece of
Trash. Yeah.
No, I didn't say trash. So of course,
Well, it's victim shaming. It's victim shaming, plain and simple. Because
it's just a flat out lie. It was a flat out lie. There was no Jesus, and Jews didn't even kill the mythical one. The mythical one was killed by the Romans. The Romans perpetrated crucifixion. They even had the Roman trial. It wasn't by Jews, even in the fictional character. You've got to be an absolute religious nitwit to blame Jews for killing your God. And gods can't die. If your God can be killed by men, he's not a God. And Jews didn't crucify anyone, ever.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute disgusting, pitiful, repulsive lie that is the wellspring from which anti-Semitism flows. It's the reason for the Holocaust. Christianity isn't a religion that Jews ought to try to accommodate and be nice to. No. They ought to spit it out of their mouths. They ought to clean it off the soles of their shoes. The whole world ought to despise this despicable religion. Yeah. God is not a man. Men cannot kill God. Jews had nothing to do with crucifixion. And Jesus is a complete and utter lie, a complete fabrication. And it's a ripoff of someone that God cares more about than anyone else, the actual chosen one, the Messiah, the Son of God, the King who is returning, our Savior who fulfilled Passover, is dode.
Mm-hmm. That's the worst part, is the counterfeit of it.
God. Yeah. Oh, my God. It just, and this is one of the most popular YouTube channels there is, with a very erudite host, and he didn't correct him and say, that's unfair. You can say that Netanyahu has been a liability for Israel, and I'll agree with that. But you can't blame, when you start blaming Jews for killing Jesus, then you're getting into the worst and the oldest and meanest and most despicable, most godforsaken and damned conspiracy in the history of the world. And if you're a Christian, your soul is as good as dead. Well, this is an interesting one to end on, fellas. The LF. First of all, they want the number one thing they want you to know about the LF is it means number one. Okay. Big deal. That isn't number one. And the second thing they want you to know about the LF is that it is silent. No, it isn't. It's a vowel. They even put down there, it's like the A in English. And is the A silent in English? Hell no.
It is not.
It is not. It is an open mouth sound, that which makes it a vowel. There's 5 vowels in the Hebrew language. The Aleph and the Ain, the Yod, the Wah, and the Hey. They are all 5 vowels. They make a sound. That's why you can speak the language. Oh. And then they get to, it's an ox's head. What is it? What is an ox? There are not a lot of oxes in the world today. And so he's not going to designate an ox. What is an ox? You familiar with an ox? You know what an ox is?
It's a castrated bull? Yeah, castrated bull.
Yeah, it's just a bull that's been castrated is an ox. So in a world where your livestock is your life, how many people are going to castrate their bull? You're going to take your prize bull and you're going to castrate him?
Oh, no. You need that.
Hell no. It's a bull, and the bull is productive. The bull provides defends the rest of the herd. The bull is productive and gives seed to the rest of the herd. And that bull is a work animal, and that bull doesn't take no nonsense from nobody, no how. The bull will plow your fields and make your harvest productive. It's a bull, not an ox. But it isn't just a bull. Yeah, the horns, they're bullish. That is correct. And that bar that goes across, they've got another one down there with that's a yoke. And bulls are harnessed with yokes, never rams. But that pointed head, which is part of the letter, it wasn't drawn with the nice little bull's head that you see on the top there. It was drawn with the pointed head. The pointed head is that of a ram. So God was so serious about his alphabet. And by the way, alphabet is from the first 2 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph and Be'eth. Yeah. That the first letter was drawn to designate the 2 most important players in his story. The ram and the bull. The ram and the bull, baby. It's all about the ram and the bull. They fulfill the Moed Mikre. They are the menorah, the luminaries. A ram and a bull. The ram's head is pointed. The bull's head is more flat. But those are, the yoke is strictly bull. The horns are bull. The pointed nose is ram. He conveys both of them. And God even identifies himself, his title, with the ram and the bull. And he shows with that yoke that that bull is engaged in working, and he's pulling not only a plow so that the field is productive for the harvest and getting rid of the weeds through that, making the land receptive, which is an essential part of the bull's role in God's story. But by having that yoke on the bull, God's saying he works. And by the way, what does the bull do in one of the most important stories in the Torah with Obed-Edom? It's the bull
pulls the ark in, brings the ark in.
Pulls the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah. And so God wants to convey that story. And he also wants to say that bull's horns, he's there to protect my son. And my son is the ram. Bulls are tough as nails. I keep on telling Rich to make up for my acerbic personality at times. The fact I'm very aggressive, I'm non-compromising. I'm rough as a bull. I'm rough and tumble, and I know it. And that's what God wanted at this time, because the only personality that's going to work at this time. And that's the nature of a bull. A bull doesn't come into a field and says, okay, let me size up the situation. That girl over there, she's pretty cute. That guy over there, I don't know if he's got a gun or a cape or whatever it is. I'll be careful over there. And, you know, there's a donkey over there and they've got an attitude. You know, I heard there was a lion that went through this. No, the bull walks into the damn field and says, it's mine. And if you're in this field, I'm going to make you pay a price. These are my cows. They're my heifers, and I'm here to be productive in my field. And if you try to work around me somehow, or disparage me, or harness, I'm going to come right after you. I'll work with you, but I'm going to gore you if you are hostile to the interests of my family. And if there's a snake, he's not going to run away from that snake. He's going to trample that snake down. And there's trouble. He's never going to run away from trouble. That's the reason why, if you look at the other fellows, Elia ran away, asked God to kill him. Moshe ran away like 20 times and did a face plant and said, God, what am I supposed to do? I can't deal with these people. They're impossible. Dode ran away from his own son. He ran away from God. He reduced to tears. He ran away from Saul. You think that bull's running away from anybody?
Nope.
Or the bull, one of the guys finally at the end saying, hey, guys,
I'm right here. Yeah.
Yeah, no more running. I'm here. We're not going to run anymore. Okay? It's not becoming. We're just not going to do that anymore. And you don't have to trust me on this. You're going to trust Yahuwd. I trust you. None of you have done what I've done in terms of exposing and condemning Islam with the 5 volumes of goddamn religion and 5,000 radio shows on Islam. I managed to look through it, didn't I? Did I ever run? No. Did I ever do a face plant? No.
Not one.
Thousands of death threats, a fatwa from Saudi Arabia, never once ducked. So, fellas, no more running. Here we are.
Nope.
God's got our back. Don't worry about it.
Sing boldly.
It's a beautiful story, the way the letters are comprised and the way they communicate this language. And if you go to yadayah.com, you'll see a glossary. And on the glossary, we present the letters as they were drawn. We actually write things out in the letters as they were originally drawn. We explain the nature of the letters. And throughout the books of Yadayah, I'm constantly using the letters to explain what things mean. And that's one of the ways we came to know that Chinook and Noach are the same guy with a different mission. First 2 letters, exactly the same, change the order. The first one is there to protect the sun, and the other one is the sun that separates and protects. And so, same guy, just different order. And you can learn so much of what God's trying to say by understanding these letters. And this this idea to whatever it was to be. It was at I can't read it at this point, but I remember reading it this morning. They didn't get anything right on the definition. I mean, nothing.
To associate with, hence to learn, causatively to teach. Yeah, a
No.
laugh. Yeah.
No. It doesn't communicate any of those things. Think bull, think ram, and think what the Passover lamb did, and you'll have an idea who is the Passover lamb, who is the ultimate shepherd. That's Dode. And who is the anima para, the bull? What role does it play? Read Numbers 15. God explains it all. Mm-hmm. So it's important to know. And know how that bull is both productive in pulling that plow and productive pulling the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, productive defending God's people, productive by always charging ahead, never doing a face plant, never running away. Bulls do not run away. Even in a bullfight, you don't see the bull run away. Just don't do that. So God chooses characteristics in people that he likes to deploy, and that's a beautiful one. So we didn't get through many of our slides here. We've got probably another 20 that I set up. We will make a little progress through them tomorrow. We'll just kind of pick up from where we left off. It was wonderful having you here, Matt. You've got a wonderful story. My wife speaks lovingly of you regularly, as if you were her adopted son, loving the contributions that you're making to the branding, to the beautiful songs and the graphics behind them, and all of the projects that she's working on. So we are tremendously appreciative of what you've done, and it's marvelous to see you grow into the Covenant family, to learn as you're learning, to make a contribution, and just to be an extraordinary, wonderful young man. So I feel like I'm kind of your adoptive father, and she feels like she's your adoptive mother.
Absolutely, I love it. It's very exciting, especially knowing once the whole Alma discovery went about, and once we realized that you guys are the Covenant parents, it really put things in perspective and really helped focus where we're going and how the relationship will evolve from here, and to understand that we have a place, and that's why Alma talks good about me, because I'm a total mama's boy. So
yeah. The fact is that a mother and father is a wonderful metaphor for what God's trying to convey. That's how the Mashal Proverbs are all written. That is how God is trying to relate to us, and that's how he wants us to relate to one another. And so as a father and mother, you are the single biggest proponents of your children. You're there to lift them up. You're there to nurture them, to guide them, to teach them, to protect them, to love them, to support them. And so the role becomes so much more comfortable for both sides, but for Leah and I, because parents are serve their children. They're the ones who contribute to the children. It's not the other way around. Now, a child can bring great joy to a parent by learning and growing and maturing and developing character. And a parent is always more excited and proud to see someone that they have nurtured succeed than when they succeed. Always been my whole life. If you see someone like Kevin and Rich here, who are exemplary in the Covenant family, and you can see somebody that you taught about Yahuwd and them doing things that are beyond what you would do. Is a lot of times Kevin will make a post and I'll say, "Wow, that was impressive." I was thinking the same thing, but I couldn't even get it out that quickly. And I'm much happier about that than if I had written it.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
I get it.
And so that's and it's also comfortable for you to approach her, because you don't do anything more than respect a parent. If the parent is taking care of you, nurturing you, loving you, supporting you, then you're going to respect that parent in return. But that's as far as it goes. And that's a really healthy relationship.
Absolutely. And like yesterday, I told her there was something I made that she said was going to make you happy, and I said that anytime I hear that I make something that's going to make you or Alma happy, it makes me happy. It's very rewarding to, to know that I'm making my forever parents proud.
Yes, we began the program by talking about where you had come and how you came out of depression. And by the way, depression is the #1 killer of people in the world. It's the single greatest hardship and liability, most counter to life and productivity in the world is depression. There is no other handicap that comes anywhere near it. And we began the program by talking about the cure for depression. There's only one cure, and it works 100% of the time. And so you are now talking about that cure. Do something that's meaningful for somebody else, and it makes you feel good, because anytime there is a joy is greater when shared.
When shared,
a sorrow is halved when shared, and a joy is multiplied.
Yeah,
and that's the nature of family. It's why we have children. It's why we grow. It's what we're here to accomplish, isn't it, Kevin?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So thank you. We care a lot about you. We're proud of you. We love to see your work and your growth. You're a really fine young man, and for anybody who would think that, well, I wasn't hung out on heroin, so I'm better. I'd say no, you're not.
Right.
The very fact
that you have experienced things that put you in a situation that you have to overcome.
I only know one person amongst hundreds that I've been very close to in my life who used cocaine regularly, who were able to say, one day, I'm never going to touch it again. I want my life to be meaningful, and this isn't the way to do it. Right. You're the only person that I know that used heroin that was able to just say, I'm not going to ever touch it again. I'm going to make my life meaningful. The character and the resolve that it takes, the determination it takes to get over that kind of an addiction and make your life positive is so extraordinary that I would say that you have more depth of character and have more reason for those who know you to trust you and rely on you than the person who hasn't gone through those things. So it's a badge of honor.
Absolutely. I that's why when you asked before the show started if I was a embarrassment or not, I was like, no, it's no. I'm an open book about it because people should know what I've gone through to understand that it's all in your head. Your mindset determines your future. You can sit there with a wallowing pity, poor me. I went through these bad experiences and I can't find my way out. My life is meaningless. Or you can do something about it. And that was one thing one of the reasons why it took me so long to come out of addiction, even after hearing of Yada Yada in 2015, was because of the fact that in my mind, I couldn't fathom a world where God, Yahweh, would want a heroin, So I just kept making excuses like, oh, he wouldn't want me. But once I stopped making excuses and said, And actually, I wasn't even trying to, when I began to engage, I wasn't even trying to become covenant because I didn't think that it would be possible for me. I went into it with the only goal was to say, before I die, I want to know who God is. So I'm going to start engaging and learning because I want to know more about who God is. Even if I never get to experience him, I want to know. But then the more I began to engage, the more it became, as Kevin said the other day, why not me? I started thinking like, wait, okay, if he wouldn't want me as a heroin addict, right? That's correct. If I'm willing to change my attitude and my path, then what's to say why not me?
You couldn't become somebody he would want. Right. You weren't somebody he would want, but you could become somebody he'd want.
Right, absolutely.
And the beauty of that goes right back to Tamam. Tamam, as perfect, would have disqualified you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It would disqualify me. It would disqualify Dode. It would disqualify every human who's ever lived.
A lot of us, yeah.
And by the way, as a fraud, Jesus couldn't have been perfect because he never existed and he's a living lie. There is no one that's perfect, and God's not even perfect. And
Right.
perfect has no value. Perfect has never proven anything, can't demonstrate they're reliable or trustworthy, can't grow, can't experience a joy or a hardship. If you're perfect, you can't, because you are the sum total of everything that is good,
there's no
and you have
going up
no
from there,
understanding
right.
whatsoever of bad. So, if Dode and our Adam and Chawa were perfect in the garden, that was the problem. They only knew good, and so that was the problem, because they had no substance, no
Right.
depth of character, nothing to show for it, and they were never going to develop it while they were perfect. So
And
it
that's why it's the
is.
tree of knowledge of good and evil, because you
That's right.
have
So
to know both to be able
right.
to
grow,
you know, right,
to make
exactly.
a contribution, to grow, to live, to prove yourself worthy. And that's why we came to understand that the story in the garden isn't about someone who is perfect becoming imperfect. It is the story of how God set up a test, not only for his firstborn, but for all of us thereafter. And
Right.
that test, are you willing to listen to what God has to say, being observant? Are you willing to think about what he has to say? Are you willing to respond to it? And are you willing to learn from mistakes? And when you trip and fall, are you able to get up and accomplish something worthwhile in your life and demonstrate that you can be trusted? Those are the four things that God is looking for. And
Yes.
and by having fallen as precipitously as you did, which is, by the way, the same thing with Moshe, same thing with Dode. By having fallen to that extent, the getting back up from there proves the point with an exclamation point. That this is what
Absolutely.
God's looking for. It's not how you begin the story, it's how you end it. And you
Mhm.
are the example of exactly what God was trying to express in Gan Eden, and why we're going back there. And you can be a glorious example to the 1,000. I think we'll have 1,400 people that'll enter the Gan Eden going forward. Be a glorious example.
And that's why Alma
I've
told me that my story, that she wanted my story on here, because of the fact that it's an important lesson for Yisra'el, for
correct.
them
It
to
is.
see that it doesn't matter what it came before. Once you know the information, it's up to you to make the decision and act upon it and go forward. And anybody can change their ways. If I can come off of living on the streets, stealing from stores every day to support my habit, to becoming not only a positive content creator, but like a contributing member of the covenant who's actually helping others learn more and grow in their walks with Yahweh, that's major. And that's what life's all about. It's getting the opportunity to change what was to what can be, and it's up to you.
Yes. Kevin, we're speaking of addiction here. Does Israel have an addiction?
Yeah, they have a religious addiction. Absolutely.
That is correct.
Addiction to balls.
Yeah, they have a religious addiction, and it is as addicting as any drug could possibly be. It's as debilitating as any drug can possibly be. And until Israel gets over that religious addiction, they cannot return to Yahweh. Yahweh wants his people to return, but he doesn't want them as they are. They also have to overcome their addiction, and their addiction happens to be religion, and that addiction is far more crippling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And now we've gone probably an hour and a half, but it was nonetheless fun. Matt, you did a great job. We'll have you back as a co-host. Thanks always, Kevin, and Rich for producing the vlog on the vlog. We'll do another show sometime later today on luminaries in all likelihood. But thank you all, and particularly Matt and Kevin and Rich. Good
Thanks,
day.
guys.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.